Do you remember what it felt like when everyone in the NBA hated us because they thought we broke basketball? When every arena got quiet in the third quarter because they knew that if Steph hit one more from the logo, the game was basically over. When teams didn't just lose to the Warriors, they lost their sense of control, their identity, their pride. All in 7 brutal minutes that felt like a storm you couldn't survive no matter what adjustment you tried. And they'd walk off shaking their heads like, how are we supposed to beat that for 4 games out of 7? I want you to go back to that feeling for a second. Because what I'm about to walk you through is the first time since those peak dynasty years that I've felt that exact same energy in my chest. That quiet, uncomfortable. This might actually happen, and if it happens, the league is cooked for real kind of energy. And I'm not talking about a cute rotation tweak or a sleeper vet minimum signing. I'm talking about the actual core of another franchise. The soul of another city, basically the identity of the Milwaukee Bucks, being ripped out and dropped into the Bay to sit next to Stephen Curry, the way Kevin Durant once did. Only louder, only scarier, only more physically violent. Because the name at the center of this is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the idea on the table right now is Milwaukee to Golden, stayed in a way that would completely rewrite the power map of the league overnight. The reason Warriors fans are buzzing about this isn't because we're bored or chasing nostalgia. It's because when you really study where this roster is right now and where the league is right now, you can see how perfectly the pieces line up, and you start to realize that this is not some silly dream built on YouTube thumbnails. It's a logical swing that fits our DNA, our moment, our money, and our future. And it sounds wild to say it out loud, but it fits even cleaner than the Kevin Durant move did back in 2016 because of what Giannis is and what we are missing. Look at what made us unbeatable at our peak. Generational shot creation from Curry. Unselfish star-level playmaking that never stuck. Insane defensive range that could blow up 2 passes ahead. Chemistry that let us run complicated actions at full speed without thinking. And a physical threat that made teams feel small and desperate. Draymond was the emotional engine. Clay's gravity held the floor wide. Andre read angles like a chess computer. And KD gave us that unfair. You actually guarded everything right and still lost the possession. Dagger. Nobody could match that blend because nobody else had that kind of talent connected to that kind of system with that kind of trust. Now picture that same blueprint, older and wiser, rebuilt around Steph's mind and touch, around Draymond's brain and voice, around new high-energy pieces who can attack the rim and switch across spots. And then you drop in Giannis as the modern version of that unfair piece. Not a jump-shooting wing the way KD was, but a relentless downhill force who lives in the paint like it belongs to him by law and who erases physical disadvantages just by existing on the floor. Think about what that actually means in real basketball terms instead of just headlines. Steph still pulls 2 defenders 28 feet from the hoop just by walking over half court. That's never changed, and it's never going to change while he's active. The problem other teams have solved in recent years is what happens after they send that pressure. You trap Steph, you force the ball out of his hands. You make somebody else beat you over and over in space, and you live with the results. Now imagine doing that same trap, and instead of swinging to a normal release valve, we're swinging to Giannis at full speed going downhill with 1 defender backpedaling and the other 2 guys on that side, already panicking and taking a step in. That's not even offense. That's cruelty. If you stay home and don't send help, he finishes through you or over you. If you do send help, he throws that little drop pass at the last second and somebody is dunking. If you collapse everybody and wall up, Steph relocates. The ball finds him again. And now you're defending this man in space while also dealing with a human freight train who does not get tired of contact and does not get scared of length. You cannot scheme that away in a 7-game series. It's the Durant feeling again, where you could play perfect defense for 22 seconds and it wouldn't matter. And if we're being honest, That's exactly what this team has been missing in the very late parts of playoff games. The ability to tilt the floor physically when whistles. Go quiet and the game turns into who's superstar. Can bend gravity with force instead of finesse. Steph is the most destructive finesse player we've ever seen. But as he ages, you don't want him carrying full contact low possession after possession. And nobody else on the roster gives you that guaranteed. I'm getting 2 feet in the paint and you're fouling me, or you're getting dunked on threat. Giannis does that without even running a real play. He's not just length and speed, he's pressure, constant pressure. And when you put constant pressure next to elite spacing, you get those third quarter avalanches again. The ones we all remember from the title runs, where you could feel the other team breaking in real time. That's why this specific player, that exact profile, is being attached to the Warriors in serious conversations. He changes your ceiling tomorrow, and he becomes your identity the day after Steph eventually steps back, which solves the single hardest problem for any contender with an aging core. And that's how you know this isn't just noise. He's a 2-time MVP. He's a Finals MVP. He's been the best rim attacker in the sport for years, and he treats defensive assignments like they insulted him personally. You don't get guys like that available. Teams spend entire decades trying to luck into one player like that. We are in a position where one may actually want the door open. That door is unlocked for a couple reasons. First, he doesn't have a no-trade clause, which means technically his current team can move him without begging for permission. And second, he's on a monster contract that reflects his value, but also gives him leverage down the road with a player option, which means the team that trades for him isn't getting him as a rental. They're getting him as both a right-now weapon and a next-era cornerstone if they can keep the situation competitive and happy. That immediately narrows the list of teams that make sense to like 3, maybe 4 at most, because you need to be able to look him in the eyes and say 2 things with a straight face. Yes, we can win a ring this year, and yes, we can build around you after that. We're one of the only teams in basketball that can say both and not sound like we're selling a lie. And let's not pretend relationships don't matter here. Giannis is represented by the same agency that represents Curry. That matters. Comfort matters. Trust matters. Legacy matters. He is not going somewhere to be a rental mascot. He is not going somewhere to be a marketing campaign. He is not going somewhere to get blamed for not being the original guy. He will be walking into a locker room that actually understands what it means to chase banners year after year. A locker room that already handled the biggest superstar integration of the last decade with Durant and made it work because there was one voice and one goal. That is not normal in this league. That is rare air. Now, let's address the actual structure that people keep whispering about, because this is the point where a lot of fans either panic or start smiling in a way that makes the rest of the NBA nervous. The idea being discussed is a 3-team deal that hits every pressure point for every team involved. The headline version is simple. The Warriors would land Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Detroit Pistons would land Jimmy Butler and a future second-rounder from Golden State. And for them, the logic is that adding a proven, playoff-built, no-excuses veteran instantly changes your locker room tone, shows your young core what real NBA toughness looks like, and signals to your fans that you're done being a maybe-someday story. Milwaukee, in that same idea, would take a different kind of prize. Young, controllable talent, and almost absurd draft control. The list includes explosive young guard Jaden Ivey, who brings burst and self-creation upside. Brandon Podziemski, a poised and high-field guard wing who already looks like he understands winning basketball at a level beyond his age. Isaiah Stewart, a physical competitive big you can plug in right away. Tobias Harris, who gives you immediate veteran minutes and financial flexibility. Plus a stack of first-round picks and pick swaps from the Warriors stretching deep into the future, including 2026, 2028, 2032, and swap rights in years like 2027 and 2031. Read that again. Because it's important. Milwaukee wouldn't walk away empty. They'd walk away with legitimate young guards to develop a front court piece with edge, a veteran to eat minutes and keep the locker room steady during the reset, and a long-term grip on Golden State's draft future stretching out nearly to the end of the decade and beyond. That's how a franchise convinces itself to trade a generational player. You don't tell your fans we lost our star. You tell them we just bought control of someone else's future. And that someone else, in this pitch, is us. So the price for us is not soft. To even talk about this, you're talking about moving Butler, who brings toughness, late-game presence, and credibility in the playoffs. You're talking about giving up Podziemski, who has already shown clutch production and feel way beyond most young guards. And you're talking about handing another franchise the right to feast on your future first-rounders and swaps for years. That's not cute. That's not painless. That is a franchise-level decision. But here's why the conversation is still alive. Because Giannis is one of the only living players who actually justifies it. You don't empty that kind of clip for a guy who's just an all-star. You only do it for a player who instantly makes you the team nobody wants to see in a 7-game series and also keeps you relevant when your current core eventually ages out. Let's say it even more clearly. The Warriors right now are in a unique moment. We're not rebuilding, we're not tanking, and we're not pretending we're still 27 years old. We are a proud veteran core with championship DNA that still scares people. Surrounded by young pieces who have shown they're not scared of the moment. Trying to thread the needle between winning again now and setting up the next decade. That balance is fragile. A move like this, if it ever crossed from concept to reality, would erase the balance problem in one shot. Because you're basically saying, Steph is still Steph. Draymond still sets the tone. We still have length and skill around them. And now we are adding arguably the most unstoppable physical presence in the modern NBA to run next to them and eventually take the torch. You are telling the rest of the league, the dynasty didn't die. It just changed shape. And that is exactly why the rest of the West would lose its mind if any version of this happened. Imagine playoff basketball with Curry on one wing, Giannis at the top, Draymond orchestrating from the dunker and shooter space. Teams could not load up the way they've been loading the last couple years. If you overload to stop Steph, Giannis lives at the rim. If you try to wall up Giannis, Steph gets clean air. If you try to switch everything and stay home, Giannis just buries the mismatch in the paint like he's playing against chairs. We're talking about stress the opponent cannot absorb for 48 minutes across multiple games. It's the old Warriors feeling all over again. You don't just lose to the talent, you lose to the math. There's also the defensive part people forget when they only think Giannis dunks. You're pairing one of the most explosive help defenders in the league with one of the smartest communicators in the league. You're getting back the chaos we used to live on. The chaos that made third quarters feel like ambush, where the other team would think the first action was open, and then suddenly two long arms would come flying out of nowhere. And the ball would be going the other way in transition. You're talking about a version of Golden State that can play big without getting slow, that can play fast without getting soft, and that can finally answer the one question that keeps coming up whenever the conversation turns to, can they still win a title? Which is, can they match size and force against elite front courts without sacrificing their identity? With Giannis, the answer is yes, every single night. No matter who's on the other side. That's the basketball argument. But there's something even deeper under this. And this is where emotion comes in for fans who have been here since we believe. Since Oracle was a concrete speaker box and the league didn't respect this franchise at all. The core of the Warriors' identity in the Curry era has always been bigger than just winning basketball games. It's been about control. It's been about being the team that dictates how the rest of the league has to react. When Durant chose the Bay, the league panicked and built around stopping us. That's power. Lately, even with Steph playing at an insane level, there's been this outside narrative that the era is fading, that other teams are setting the tone now, that Golden State is no longer the sun everyone else orbits. A move like this flips that entire story back in one move. You're not just getting a superstar. You're taking the emotional center of another contender, a former champion in his own right, and you're saying to the entire league, he's ours now, and we're not done. That's not just about banners. That's about identity, about respect, about legacy. And that's why people keep calling this the biggest potential swing since 2016. It's not because Giannis and KD are the same type of player. They're totally different. It's because the effect on the league will be the same. Instant panic from everyone else. Instant pressure on us to deliver. Instant shift in how every other franchise has to build their roster for the next 5 years. That's dynasty behavior. That's what we used to do. And we're sitting here right now with a real possibility of doing it again. So this is where I turn it to you, because this fan base is not casual, and you know the cost as well as I do. Would you do it? Would you send out Jimmy Butler? Would you move a young guard like Podziemski, who already looks like a future core piece? Would you hand Milwaukee a string of first-round picks and swaps deep into the 2030s? All for the right to line up Giannis Antetokounmpo next to Stephen Curry in blue and gold and dare the West to solve that 4 times in 7 tries. Do you think that's the move that keeps this era alive and reloads it? Or do you think the price is too high and the smarter play is to protect depth? Protect youth, protect draft control, and try to win one more the old way with what we already have? Tell me in the comments, because this isn't fantasy talk anymore. This is the kind of conversation front offices actually have when timelines start to tighten and superstars start looking around and asking what's next. And while you're answering, do the thing that keeps this show alive and keeps us in position to bring you the real version of this story. The second anything actually shifts, like the video, get subscribed, hit the alert so you don't miss the next update, and share this with the one Warriors fan in your group chat who still says the dynasty is over. Because if this goes even halfway toward reality, that person is going to have to rewrite everything they thought they knew about the Golden State Warriors and the balance of power in this league.